Station, everyone. Welcome back to TM Nerdy. I am, as Brother Joe likes to say, the Mountie TM. Happy new comic book day, everyone, and happy Whiplash Wednesday. That's right, it is Whiplash Wednesday with the PCP Army Bad Batch. It all started over at the hashtag Blame Fable Show, one collection down on Instagram, and now we are here for chatting with the comic community. I'll get to the rest of what happens at Whiplash Wednesday after the video, but we're here with a special guest. This is episode 20 of Chatting with the Comic Community, and we have a rock star in this community joining us today. He doesn't really collect that much new comics, but he has a wall full of amazing slabs. That's right, guys. I'm talking about Kenny from Caps On Comics. So everybody, let's give him a hearty station to Kenny from Caps On Comics.
Station, how's it going?
How's it going, man? Thank you so much for joining me, man. You are an inspiration to this community. You've been collecting for a long time. You did get out of reading for a while, but as you can see behind you, the collecting part of you has not stopped.
No, absolutely. I still love collecting. I do love reading comic books. I love all of it. The art was always the biggest thing to me. So comic books are just amazing. And thank you for the kind words. It really is an honor to be on the show. I really appreciate it.
So for the viewers at home that don't know about you, tell a little bit about yourself to them.
Sure. Okay. Well, so I love history, and comic books is a big part of history, right? I look at these comic books as like little documents of what's happened, not just in the United States, but internationally as well. The good things that's happened, the bad things that happen. And these comic books reflect some of the best things of society. And I also see how they can reflect a lot of the negative things of society. So I love that. And so I like to take that kind of information and put that into my show, whether it's looking at just one character and in that character's evolution over time, or looking at a bunch of different characters combined. So that's really what I like to do. I like to do that. And I do like top 10s and stuff and some giveaways. So, and it's not just comic books. I also really like toys, action figures, that kind of stuff. 80s action figures to me were the best. So I love that, all of that. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's awesome, man. So how did you get started collecting comics? I know you said the 80s, so I'm guessing it was around that time.
So like I remember just being given comic books as a kid from just other people, but I didn't start collecting them per se until I was a little bit older. And that was like when the death of Superman was like such a big event that everybody on the planet was following the death of Superman. And I remember like that's when I started like actively going out and looking for comic books. Like these are the comic books, like I want these. But before that moment, like I had always like really been into art since as long as I can remember. So I would just sit and draw and I would copy these covers and like I had committed to memory like every costume character that was in my world. And so getting to actually to that point of, wow, I'm actually collecting now. Like I want this book for this story. That was a big moment, and that was absolutely the death of Superman that did that for me. That brought me into that world, and that's where it all started. You know.
So when did you like? I know you said that you do continue to read some comics to this day, but when did you stop reading comics and when did you get back into reading comics?
Sure. I probably stopped around 1995 is when I swapped over. Like I had so my love of art was also accompanied by a love of music. And music was a big part of my life. In the South, like football is just like, it's one of those things that's everywhere. It permeates every aspect of society in the South. And so I got into playing football. I got in a pretty bad accident playing football. I got tackled. I broke like almost every bone in my foot. And as a result of that, like the school would not let me play unless my parents signed off on this expensive like insurance form. And so my parents were like, hell no, we're not doing that. So as a result of that, I started playing music. So when I started playing music and I realized that like women wanted to hear me play and it got me attention with women, comic books kind of just slid to the wayside. Because like what's awesome about today is like everyone loves comic books. Comic books are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. In the fact that you can find knockoff shirts on Amazon about every comic book character just speaks to the popularity of the medium, right? It's everywhere. But back in the 90s, man, it wasn't cool to be a comic book collector. And so I was just I was willing to do just about anything to have more women talk to me, you know? So that's how the it hit pause, you know? That's just like I'm just going to put pause on this for a little bit and we'll see what happens.
Well, speaking of the music, like, yeah, you do put a lot of videos on YouTube, like you playing a banjo, and you actually created a banjo, didn't you?
A guitar, yeah. I created a guitar of a snow shovel.
Oh, it was a guitar. I thought it was a banjo. Sorry about that.
No, it's fun. They both have strings.
Yeah, that was just amazing. So like you got into like you got musically inclined by the 90s and that. Did you just start playing guitar? Is there anything else that you played?
Well, so yeah, I can play a bunch of instruments, but like music was always a big part of my life. Like my mother loved music, and so there was always a radio playing. So it was always there. We went to church, and the church that I went to had a full band, and so and it was real country. So I was influenced by so much going on, southern rock, and then also gospel and things like you would hear like a lot of southern musicians speak of being influences for them. So, you know, it's just one of those things that during the 90s, like this was such an explosion of great music too, you know? So like not only did we have amazing comic book artists and writers in the 90s, but we had some really great musicians too. And to me, like that was a great decade to be a teenager. And so like I loved everything coming out of Seattle. And then after that, the post grunge era was great. And so like all of that stuff just makes me who I am. You know, I'm influenced by all that. The whole deal with the snow shovel guitar is someone that's I'm friends with sent me a video, and it's this guy Justin Johnson. He's playing this shovel guitar, and it's really cool. The fact that he's playing the shovel isn't that big of a deal, but what's interesting is like he's really an amazing guitar player because he has a very unique way of playing. He can do two things at once, and it sounds like two guitar players are playing at once. So I just thought it was funny. So I'm like, well, I'm a little bit of a tinkerer too. So, a little bit of a mad scientist. So I just wanted to see if I could do it. You know, sometimes I have to give myself a crazy goal just to see if I can. Because as a kid, being raised, like I was always told that I could do whatever I wanted to. Like if you set your mind to it, you can do it, right? You're caps. If you want to do it, you can do it. Can't, never, could, do. So just do it, you know? So that was a great way to like, I mean, it's a good mindset to grow up with, you know, like if you just that positive thinking, you know, let's do this. Um, as far as like putting music on my channel, that's all dank, you know, because like he didn't say to go, hey Kenny, go put music videos out. But he released this one video, um, being a tea master. And I'm sure you may have seen this video. It's about, you know, he tells this story of this sword master that comes to town, and he goes to get a cup of tea. The tea master says, hey, can I wear your armor around while I make you this tea? And he's like, yeah, sure. So this guy, he meets this other sword master. The tea master meets a sword master, and the sword master is like, I challenge you to a duel. And he's like, oh, well, in order to save some time, let me make you a cup of tea. So the tea master in disguise makes this other sword guy a cup of tea, and the other guy's like, wow, if you're good at tea, you're really good at swords, so I'm going to leave you alone. And the point of that is to like show other people how good you can be at one thing, and that shows that you can be good at other stuff, right? In this interesting sort of way that I've never thought about it. So I was like, you know what? I have all these videos of me playing guitar, so I'll just put one up here and see how that works out. They got some pretty good responses. So I haven't done one in a couple of weeks, but I've been busy, and I plan on getting that all back to like normal over the next month.
That's awesome. Yeah, I look forward to that. I know Spine Ticks one night, I think not a couple of Saturdays ago, ended up at one point brought out the band or not banjo, the bass, and started playing the bass, and they started playing. Like, you should be on Spine Ticks sometimes. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yes, sure. I will never say no to a show. That's that's my unofficial motto.
And Sith's pretty good. Like, he's probably watching this right now, and you could probably just hit him up, and he'd be like, "Oh, you want to be on the show?" Yeah, he's
Yeah,
very
I've
open
seen
to that.
him on Gary B. Well, the hot seat with the usual suspects, and they had one of the most amazing discussions on music. And I know like he talks a lot about his friend being in Ambrosia, and like he's got like his gold records behind him, which I would trade all of these comic books for one gold record. So yeah, I'm aware of him. He's a very interesting person. Like he, I'm a history nerd, and so like he's a descendant of a Revolutionary War um, officer, and so he's a member of the Society of Cincinnati, which is really cool because I've met those members before out in public, but I've never met someone and know who they are and then find out they're a member of the Society of the Cincinnati, and that's like, wow, that's just really cool. So he's a very interesting person.
Oh yeah, he is. It's fun to be on a show too. Like, I was just on the other night. I said, yeah, I'll come on for about an hour or so because it's 12 a.m. when you guys start at my time. And I ended up being on there for 4 hours.
Wow, that's incredible.
So it's a lot of fun being on there. Speaking of history, man, like, you collect a lot of different things, not just comic books, but like, I remember you were on Robbie Pop Culture Philosophers, and you pulled out a typewriter.
Yeah.
And that, like, is there anything else that you collect that's not comic book related or toy related?
Yeah, if there is some kind of either sentimental or slight value to it, there's a chance that I will collect it. You know, I like a lot of stuff. Like if I had the choice, my whole house would be a huge man cave, and I would like cordon off one room for everybody else to live in because I love antiques, not just like military stuff like rifles and helmets, but even just like I have like my ancestors' old kettle that my great great grandmother used to cook meals for, and like just things like that. Like in the corners of my room, I have like property markers from my family's home property back in Alabama that's got like barbed wire wrapped around it, and I collect pretty much everything. The typewriter you're talking about that I showed at Rockin' Robbie's was a typewriter I won in an auction. It was Denny O'Neill's typewriter, and it's a one of a kind thing. Like I wouldn't take anything for it. I'm hoping to get to use it one. I haven't tested to see if it works. I hope it works. If it does, I'm gonna use it in my career later on down the road for a little bit. But probably the weirdest thing that I have is I got to go to Disneyland one time, and we went to the Guardians of the Galaxy ride, right? And obviously, I love the Guardians of the Galaxy. Yep, first appearance right there. So we went on the Guardians of the Galaxy ride at Disneyland, and outside they have these big, huge flower pots, and the flower pots are instead of like having mulch in it or anything like that, it's got these small little orange pieces of glass, and they were just so cool to me. So I took a handful of them and I brought them home, and I made a little base out of Legos, and I put all of those little pieces of orange glass in it, and then I got like a tiny little bitty pine cone from Disneyland, from like the equivalent of the Magic Kingdom. So it's Disneyland and then California Adventure. So and I got this little pine cone, so it sits on top of those little orange pieces of glass from the Guardians of the Galaxy ride. It's weird.
That is awesome. Yeah, it fascinates me that, like, whenever you pulled that out on Rock and Roll, I was like, oh, okay, this guy doesn't just collect slabs, like, he collects everything. Like, well, everything that you love, like, right?
Yeah, that is the common theme. It's just stuff that I love. That's it. Yeah.
And you don't see too much of that. You usually see people showing off like what figures they have or statues or so whenever you were like, here, just hold a second, hold my beer.
Yeah.
And pulled out a typewriter. I was like, what? It was
Yeah,
just crazy.
I love statues, and like DJ Link's right. He's got the most impressive collection of hot toys that I've seen on YouTube. They're awesome. And I've told him that like if I ever win the lottery, that I'm gonna take that money and I'm gonna buy another house and then I'm gonna fill it with hot toys. Because my man cave is really small and I don't have much room. That's the great thing about these comic books. And like, so even my long boxes are in another room in a closet because I don't have room for that here. But yeah, I'd love to have a hot toys collection. They just take up so much room. And even my toys, like I have to like put them somewhere else, like except for my superpowers collection that's hanging on the wall. So I have to make the most use out of like what limited space that I have.
So what toys do you usually collect? Like you said, supers toys?
Superpowers. Yeah. They're I got some loose ones right here, but you know, so that's Superman from the Superpowers collection back from like 81.
Okay.
Right. So this is my bag of superpowers that I let my kids play with. But up on the wall, I'd show you, but the last time I moved my computer, like the internet just.
That's all right.
So I don't want to ruin that for the show. But I've got like probably 4 videos of me updating my superpower collection, and they're on the wall, and they're the ones that are all carded. And so my favorite line is Kenner. Like my company is Kenner. They just, they have a really good track record, but they just burn out way too fast. Like they only had like 10, maybe 15 really, really good years as opposed to like Hasbro and Mattel, like other big companies that made toys for like 40 years. So, yeah, Kenner's awesome. I love the Star Wars toys. Those are what got me into Kenner. But when I was a kid, I didn't know what Kenner was. I didn't do that until I was like older. So those and superpowers. But I also like really like He-Man. He-Man is another toy that I played with so much as a kid. So I'm actually like before I got onto the show, I was editing a Masters of the Universe themed episode,
Nice.
and I lost all those toys as a kid. So and a lot because like comic books have just gone up in price. They're just so expensive now. I haven't bought a comic book in months. So I was like, I'm just going to start buying some toys. So I bought an entire Masters of the Universe collection. I got like probably 20 action figures. I got like 2 play sets. And so there's like it was like 25 minutes. And I'm going to try to whittle it down closer to like 10 and do like some fast parts of it. Fast forwarding through some of the unboxing. But yeah, it's just me unboxing this Masters of the Universe collection. And as soon as I unboxed it, I like recorded it in like June. So in July, me and my kids played with it. And like my daughter, she likes Tila. So she's, we had fun with it. Ninja Turtles. I love Ninja Turtles. I just bought the Techno Drum. I don't know how familiar you are with Ninja Turtle toys from like back in the day, but the biggest, like hardest to get set was the Techno Drum. And it was expensive. My parents wouldn't buy it for me. So I bought like a really like old, like it was just not in great shape. And I have Frankensteined it over the last 2 months. Get a piece here, get a piece there. And I have rebuilt it all by myself. And I saved probably $100 doing it that way. So that'll be something I'm going to unbox. That'll eventually get to become a video. So, but yeah, that's the stuff that I grew up with. Transformers, Mask, God, you name it, man. All the stuff from the 80s. It was all good.
So did you read the Mask comic book or did you just watch the movie?
Well, I didn't even know there was a movie. Like I watched the cartoon show when I was a kid. But no, I didn't know that I know that there's a comic book, but I didn't know there was a movie. Anyway, yeah, I used to watch that all the time as a kid. I wish my bicycle would convert into something else.
Right on. Yeah, the Techno Drum. It was like that big round thing, and it
Yeah.
just opened up, and it had the base of like Shredder and that.
Yeah.
I
It had a
remember
big
that.
eyeball on top.
Yeah, I didn't have that. I wish I had. I've never had a playset and that, so eventually I do want to get one. I think Castle Grayskull would be the first one that I'd probably want to get.
Yeah. They're
I
pretty
know.
affordable on eBay. It
Yeah,
just depends on how much stuff that you want to get with it.
yeah. I know at Cadets Toys and Comics, Nick Comic Culture Shop had one as well, and had a bunch of He-Man figures.
Cool.
So speaking of He-Man, did you like the Revelations cartoon that came out?
The animation was astounding.
Hmm. That's it.
I know that this is a very divisive subject, and I know that some people love it and some people don't. I haven't really seen a lot of gray area with this, and it just wasn't. It. I think about the best review I've heard someone say about it is it felt like a really good part two. I believe it was Robbie who said that. It felt like a really good part two. Like I would have just liked to have seen what Kevin Smith would have done with the He-Man that I was accustomed to, as a kid, instead of like having him die like so fast. And I honestly I didn't watch the whole thing, and I explained this to Marvin Wynn. I had a conversation with him about it. It's just that it it was good looking. Animation was top notch. It just wasn't for me, and I have like my time is kind of precious, and so I decided there were other things I'd rather spend my time on, and that is like one of those things has been rewatching or watching for the first time the Fox Batman animated series, and so like that was one of those things that came out in the 90s, like Power Rangers. I never watched that as a kid because that came out in what I call the Dark Ages, and so I really enjoyed the Fox animated series. Like it's good stuff. The last time I was on the Shamar show with Manny and all y'all, there was talking about the Batman animation. I was like, I've never seen it. And they're like, what? So I've been watching that, and I'm on like season 3. It's really good. The animation's fun. The music is really awesome too,
Yeah.
and some great storylines. It's a great show. So that's not much of an answer to your He-Man show. I know that you like it, and I'm
I
glad
do
that you
enjoy
do.
it, but I do agree that probably the two best episodes was like episode 1 and then the last episode. And then in between was it was lengthy a bit and kind of didn't have to be there, and it was a struggle to get through. But all in all, like I don't usually hate too many things. So I always try to like it for what it is, or if I don't like it, I just don't say anything about it.
Yeah,
So,
that's something I tell my kids. Like, I don't like them to use hate. The only thing that they're allowed to hate is food. I mean, other than that, like, you don't need to have that in your heart. So.
yeah. But I do want to touch on, like you said, Legos earlier, and I know you're a big fan of Legos and creating Legos. Like, what I know, there's a ton of stuff now, like ton of just like you can make so many things with Legos now. They come with like I'm pretty sure at one point they came out with like the Death Star.
Yeah.
And you can create that. So like,
Yeah.
have you been creating any of that stuff or getting any of that?
Yeah. So, my love of Legos is strictly because of absolute denial. When I was a kid, like my parents would not buy me Legos because they were too expensive. Like, I didn't have a lot of money growing up, and so my parents they got me a lot of GI Joes because GI Joes were fairly inexpensive, but Legos were just out of no, not getting you Legos. They would get me stuff like, and it'd be like a bucket of just random Legos to have to create my own stuff, and that wasn't as fun. So once I got married and like I realized that my wife wasn't going to leave me for getting into comic books, I was like, well, let's try Legos. Let's see if she'll stay with me after I get into Legos. And it started off like I did start building my own stuff, like not in a set. Like I bought like a bunch of gray bricks and started building castles, and I really enjoyed that. And I got into the sets. And what's interesting is since I have started re-Legoing. Like the market has changed so much because I also got in right around the time of the Lego movie. And there's this part that cracks me up. I've seen it 100 times. It's at the end with Will Ferrell. And like the kid's like, but it says it's like ages 4 to 15. And Will Ferrell's like, those are just like suggested ages. These are adult Legos. And that just really hits a little close, you know? But what's great is like today they are there's a certain part of that industry that they are going right after adults, and it's like the Black Series where they have like these amazing helmets and stuff, and like that Death Star. I have that Death Star. I had to save up a long time because it was like $400 for that set, and I saved up for months, got it used. Somebody hadn't put it together, but like the box was damaged and like some of the bags were open. And luckily I had enough Legos that I could fill in some of those parts. But yeah, I have the Lego Death Star. It took a week to build, and the kids play with it. You know, it's big and heavy, and I don't have to worry about them destroying it. But there are some sets that I won't even try to go after. Like they're just too expensive, and just like Hot Toys, they take up a lot of room. So but yeah,
Well,
Legos are awesome.
it makes sense that you love Legos because it's like you said earlier, you love creating things with your hands and that's
Yeah.
a big thing to create with your hands, especially if it takes you a week to do.
Yeah, and I just love to get drunk in Lego. It's so much fun. It's just like, the kids have gone to sleep, the wife's asleep. It's just me. And I used to do this so much more until I got into my YouTubing, and now YouTubing just eats away at my Lego time. So, you got to have balance in your life. So,
No, you can just put on YouTube and that and watch while you're playing with your Legos.
yeah.
Multitask, I guess. Uh, have you watched the Toys That Made Us? They did a Lego portion of that.
Yes, I have seen them, and I've watched them multiple times. And my daughter, who is 8, she is obsessed with that show. So much to the fact that like she watches them over and over again, and she wants to be a toy maker. Like she wants to work for Hasbro and Mattel, and that's what she tells everybody. Like she wants to make toys for a living, just because she's seen that show so many times. So it is an awesome show. I like that. I like the movies that made us. That's another great part of that. I just love all of those. It's so much fun to watch.
Well, since we're on the topic of TV and stuff, I know a lot of hate is out there for the CW shows. Like, have you watched any of them?
Yeah, let's see. I am not currently watching anything. My life pretty much got postponed a year ago, and YouTube was like my outlet for everything. And so other than that, like I watch hardly any movies, any TV. But before, because okay, so over this last year, for those of you who don't know, I've been strictly focused on passing my comprehensive exam for the PhD program, and that's all I've done for last year is read a book a day and write up a 1-page summary over that, and then out of that 1-page summary, reduce that down to a 3x5 card over 500 years of history. So that's all I've done with YouTube at nighttime. But before that, I used to watch all the CW stuff. I started watching Arrow from the time it came out. I loved it when Flash started because they're like, okay, wow, we have this is what DC should have done, just like Marvel did, slowly build it up, And so like when Flash finally gets to meet Oliver Queen, those are great episodes. I really enjoyed that. Constantine was awesome, even though that was like CBS or something, and then eventually it got WB'd or CW'd. I watched Supergirl on Fox, which is now part of that. The Legends of Tomorrow, I really, really, really loved season 1, but I didn't like season 2 so much. Like once they got rid of Rip Taylor, it's not Rip Taylor. I can't remember his name. Rip Hunter. Once Rip Hunter got reduced to a villain, it just wasn't the same. And like I love a lot of the characters, like Damien Dark, that actor, he's amazing. He was like Dum Dum Dugan in Captain America, but I can't remember his name either. There's just a lot of really good talent there. And I got all through those. I never watched Black Lightning. I stopped right up into that because I even had like a list. I printed this. I'm such a nerd, man. I printed off a list and it was color coded. And I was juggling like 4 episodes at one time because it's like, I got to make sure I'm watching them in order, right? Because I'd miss them and then go back and watch them. So it's like Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, then back and back and back and forth, and then throw in Vixen for a little bit. So yeah, I think there's a Stargirl show. I've never seen that, and I haven't watched any of the Black Lightning, but I'll get back into it at some point. But yeah. I do love it. It's very entertaining. It's cheesy, but it's like Batman 66 cheesy, right? It's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, especially with DC Legends of Tomorrow, like you got to go into that show not taking too much seriously because it's a wacky show. It's like comedy relief show in a way.
Yeah. Brandon Routh, like I love him to death. Like my favorite episode out of every one of those CW shows, it's Legends of Tomorrow. They're in the Wild West, and Brandon Routh spits. And then the guy who's like the Indiana Jones guy that turns into like Colossus, he's like, chewing tobacco? He's like, nah, Tootsie Roll. It's just, only Brandon Routh could deliver a line like that. It was just great.
Yeah, they're awesome. Like, did you end up watching the Infinite Crisis when that came out?
No, I haven't gotten to see that. So I know, like, I want to because, like, I think, like, oh Jesus, Michael Keaton comes back at some point, and Ezra Miller, the guy who's played like the DC Flash, shows up in it at some point.
Brandon Routh comes back as Superman.
What? See, oh yeah, and the dude from Smallville, yeah. So it's on the list of stuff to catch up with.
And I gotta say, like John Cryer does make a really good Lex Luthor. He's probably one of my favorites so far now, like besides Michael Rosenbaum or the animated Lex Luthor from Justice League.
Yeah. Cartoon. Cool. Yeah, well, I can't wait to get to that point.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. So Stargirl as well. Stargirl is a lot of fun as well. And that first season wasn't on the CW, but the second season is, and it's out now.
Okay.
And it's really fun to watch. You never watched Batwoman?
No, I haven't seen that either. So, like I said, I got a lot of stuff to catch up on. I think I got to like season 4 of Flash, which was like season 6 of Arrow. Maybe it was later than that. I know it was definitely, I finished season 2 of Legends of Tomorrow. So whatever chronologically that time ended, that's like when I just stopped everything.
Yeah, it's a little different of a show. I forget what happens in season 3. I know it's just all wacky, and that there's new characters that come in and out of that series quite a bit.
Yeah.
I was upset when Captain Cold died at the end of season 1, though, because he was probably one of my favorite characters in DC Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Remember how he sacrificed himself at the end?
No, I don't know that. What is it? What's his name again? Captain who?
Captain Cold.
Cold. Oh yeah. Okay, I did see that. Yeah. I used to love both of those. Wentworth Miller and Dominic something. They were awesome in Prison Break.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like they even allude to that relationship in Legends of Tomorrow. So that was unfortunate that they had to kill off Captain Cold. But I did see like they brought like a version of Captain Cold back. Then they had to like replace him back in the timeline.
Yeah, I think it was for a crossover event, and it was Earth X. They called it, and he wasn't Captain Cold; he was Citizen Cold. He was part of the good guys' resistance.
Okay.
So that was very interesting. I love all the crossovers when they cross over with each other because they bring those aspects of their TV shows to each other's shows.
Yeah, absolutely. But I've always liked the Flash's Rogues Gallery. Like, yeah, he's got some of the best. You know, Gorilla Grodd is one of the best villains. Like, I just love that villain so much.
Let's move on to movies. Like, I know you've been on Rock and Robbie Live's movie nights.
Hmm.
and talk to movies. And you're a big fan of action movies, mostly.
Yeah, I love movies. Yeah.
So like, what are some of your favorite action movies growing up?
Well, I think like the first action movie I remember was Indiana Jones, and as a kid, Indiana Jones was way more of my favorite than Star Wars. Like I love Star Wars too, but Indiana Jones was my jam. So, and then like growing up in the 80s, it was this era of just toxic masculinity. And so all these dudes were just like, like so there's Rocky and Rambo and any Sylvester Stallone movie, any Schwarzenegger movie, Chuck Norris. So like I love those movies, like Predator and even like all the Rambo movies. I've already said those, but just Commando, like these movies where like it's this one guy against the world, and a lot of these revolve around going back and rescuing like abandoned POWs and stuff, and it's this whole ethos of like we won't forget, and we'll find you and that kind of stuff, and like that just it was everywhere, and so then on top of like the hardcore action movies where the body counts pile up, I loved all the other fun stuff too, like Back to the Future. That's such a great movie. And a lot of the John Hughes movies. I just love 80s cinema. It was a fun time. Um and like all through the 90s, like I would rather watch a movie than so many things. Going to the movie theater to me was like the best thing. I always loved going to the movie. And I know one time Robbie was saying that he got to work at a movie theater. It's like, God, you've had like some of the coolest jobs. We had our theater was like an hour away. And so like when I went to go watch like Tim Burton's Batman in 1989, I had to drive an hour away to go watch that because like this small town in the middle of nowhere. So it was a real treat to go to the movies. I really enjoyed that. And so yeah, I really love like how in the 90s like the superhero cartoon, like the superhero movies were starting to happen because of the popularity of Tim Burton's Batman. But like everybody talks about like the Joel Schumacher Batman movies and how they're not as good as they could have been, and but like I was talking to on the hot seat with Gary B last week. Yeah, we were talking about like the Spirit and the Rocketeer and Phantom. Like these are really good movies. It's just that, and maybe they didn't have like the biggest budget and like the odds were stacked against them. But it was because of movies like that that eventually like, led up to give us like X-Men in like 2000. And so like that's when like everything changed and like superhero movies got good. Mostly, there's still some crap out there, like you know. Anyway, I don't want to like be all negative and stuff, but yeah, there are some great movies. There's some bad movies, and I could talk movies like all day. I just love them. I'm not a big horror fan though.
Mm.
There are some that I love, but like I haven't seen like every horror movie. Like I know like some people like that's their jam. They just want to watch horror movies all day, and that's not for me. I'm much more of a lighthearted individual.
I agree with you. Like, there is some horror movies I like, but like they're not my preference to watch. Like, if I was to watch a horror movie, it would have to be like kind of a psychological kind of thriller type thing. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not a big. I don't like seeing people rip apart. I don't like.
yeah.
I don't like seeing that. Like, especially if it's a character I grew to like in that movie, and then see them
Hmm.
rip. So I don't think I've ever sat through a full watch of the Saw movies.
Yeah.
But have you ever watched Identity with John Cusack?
Yes, that's a great movie.
That's
Yeah,
like
I
that's
love John Cusack. Yeah.
that's my type of horror.
Hmm. Yeah. So like
And,
my favorite's The Shining. Because like I like movies that are possible, like that you can like see it, like okay, I can see that happening. But like Saw, like sure, I'm sure that that's possible. Some psycho out there could just rig up like this. I'm the guy who created like this industrial process, and so now I'm going to turn that to a torture device. It's not really my thing. But yeah, like Identity is a great movie, That's a good example of things that like it's possible, and it's enough suspense. Like like Seven. You know, Seven is an action movie, but it's also like a suspense thriller, and it's not really a horror movie. But it's got like those moments where it's like, oh, wow, you know, that's just really great. So
Yeah. But talking about action movies and that, so there's always two big names. There's Stallone and Schwarzenegger. Who is your favorite?
I gotta go with Arnold Schwarzenegger, hands down. Yep. As a kid, so I grew up in a family that was very patriotic, and like my mom, so I had uncles that were in Vietnam, and so like because Sylvester Stallone was a draft dodger, you know, there wasn't a lot of respect for him, and so I was just told a lot, you know, that he was unpatriotic and how dare he make these super patriotic movies. You know, it was just, and as a kid, like I didn't really understand the complexities of living in that time, what it was like to be afraid of something like that, you know, and as an adult, like I completely understand what happens in a situation like that. And those are things that are unfair to be placed on him. But as a kid, just didn't like Sylvester Stallone that much because I was told not to like him, you know? And I always loved Arnold Schwarzenegger. I never had that backlash. Like, and he was great in everything from Conan up into Jingle All the Way. I could still, like, even right now, I'd watch Jingle All the Way. Like, I saw an Ultraman toy at the store not long ago, and it's like, oh, Jingle All the Way. But today, you know, going back, I've watched all the Rocky movies and the Creed movies. Like, I love Rocky. Those are excellent movies. Excellent movies. Not that big of a fan of Cobra, but you know, Rambo First Blood is so much better than the second, the third, the fourth, yada yada yada. So I still, even to this day, I still have to go with Schwarzenegger. I would still watch movies with him. Like if I was saying, like, you got to watch this movie right now, pick one. This Schwarzenegger movie versus this Stallone movie. I'd go with Schwarzenegger.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you mentioned Jingle All the Way because I was going to ask you that. I was like, so have you watched Jingle All the Way? Because like a lot of people I talk to, besides being like Stefan Missing Link, because like we're like the same age, we're the only two that remember Jingle All the Way and Turbo Man.
Yeah, Turbo. Yeah, not Ultraman. That's right, Turbo Man. Yeah. So I didn't watch it when it came out. I watched it because of like Conan O'Brien back in the early 2000s, I guess. Like he would have, it was the voice of Triumph, the comic dog. And so they'd have like this picture of Schwarzenegger with his lips cut out and somebody would imitate him. And they were always talking about Jingle All the Way in like such a like a hokey and fun way. And so I was like, well, I have to watch it. And I did. I watched it. I loved it. And so it's a part of our tradition now. Like it's just like Christmas Vacation and Scrooged. Like it has to be watched. Like that's a Christmas movie and Die Hard. I will argue that all day. Yeah.
I would have to add Gremlins to that list for a Christmas movie as well.
Yeah. Another great movie. It scarred my children though, so I have to wait a few more years to try to push that again. It's like, all right, who wants to try to watch Gremlins again? No.
Yeah, it's funny. Like these movies, some of these movies came out for kids. Like even Beetlejuice, like they ended up making an animation for that. But like I look back at that and I was like, I was scared watching that a lot of the time.
That movie gave me nightmares as a kid.
Because like the first scene, like it's all about death in a way. Because like they just die right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then you're thrown into that. So you're even if your parents did not have the conversation with you about death and stuff, you learned it on Beetlejuice.
Yeah, that's right.
That time.
Yeah.
So you say you're getting back into reading comics and that. What are some of the comics that you've been reading so far?
Well, right now, I still haven't started like reading back and like I told you, like I'm gonna read Decorum as soon as I get the chance. I'm in vacation mode right now, and so the next thing I got to do is I got to read a couple of books, and I brought some books with me to show you some of the stuff that I'm going to be reading soon, and I will be talking about like on my show at some point. But Yeah, I do have a list of stuff to watch, to read, and Decorum's at the top of the list. I bought a stack of books on eBay based off of Dank and Robbie's recommendation, and I've forgotten the name of it now. It's something Strong, Tim Strong, Jim Strong. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, that
Tom Strong.
Tom Strong, yeah.
Yeah, and it's 20 issues written by Alan Moore. It's supposed to be like an amazing set. I got that. It's waiting to be read, and something else. Dank had this. I think he still does the show. It's shit I missed, and he talks about stuff that he missed while he was in his own dark ages, and it was the first one he did, and he was explaining how this series had gone up in for like the rights had been sold. They were going to actually start producing it, and then COVID hit, and they wound up canceling it. So don't be surprised if they eventually someday like get that back into the industry. That's another series that I'm going to read. I just haven't had the chance. But can I show you some books?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So these are books like I'm going to be going through. And so I haven't really interviewed anyone on my channel because there are so many other people that interview other members of this community. And I don't really want to step on anyone's toes. And if I do something, I want to be just a little bit different, because, there's only so many times that I can be interviewed before somebody's like, that's another interview with Capstone Comics. No thanks. So I was thinking about, and anybody else is welcome to take up this challenge too. I want to start interviewing some of these authors. These authors, they talk about comic books and not necessarily their stories. But this is all about, there we go, comic books during the Cold War. All right. The deal at this time is you have a lot of these comic books that are coming out. And what does that mean? What does that say about the Cold War? And you have to understand that, like, people imagine the 50s and 60s of this great era. It's like everything was going great and everybody had cars and but there's so much conformity going on. And this book talks about the conformity that these comic book creators had to deal with in order just to get the product out. You have to remember, like, the Comics Code Authority, that's a big thing. This is another book. I've read this one a bunch, and all of these books. So this is edited by two guys, but it's got chapters by a bunch of different people, and they talk. This one specifically talks about the Flash and how like his red costume is a product of the Cold War, in which it means that like the Cold War, like the red is spreading all over everywhere, and the red scare. Talks about the nuclear family and the Fantastic Four. And how like Sue Storm is supposed to uphold like this family equality. And that's why it was okay to have a woman in the comic book because she's the mother, so it's a very interesting way of looking at comic books. This one, it's great. It's all about World War II comic books. This is stuff that like I will be using for my dissertation, at least to discuss like the history of the industry and how like they just got to be like such an important part of American culture, And so this is all about the propaganda aspect of it. It's like, hey, your father and your brother and uncle, they're out there serving. So what can you do to help? Interesting stuff. This is a really cool one too for those of you who like comic books. It's a comic book history of comic books. So it discusses all the stuff that's happening, but it does it in a comic book format. And it's really fun. A lot of good information in here. And a lot of them are done in many different styles and stuff. So these are the books that I will be at some point bringing up and discussing, because I think that like there's so much stuff to read, right? There's so much stuff out there. And I know there's so much more to read. And I just want to offer people like, yeah, if you like comic books and just want to try to learn something else about it, there's all this other stuff out there that's worth looking at.
That's awesome, man. Like, you are definitely into history, that's for sure. And so those just give you a little bit of history of the comic books and how they're made. Like, I know the last one you showed had pictures. Is the other one just words and talking about the history? Yeah.
So, like, for instance, this one, the 10-Cent War, you open it up and it's it's a boring old book. But if you flip through, there are. They use like pages as like examples. Trying to find it real quick. I just saw one. I'm never going to find it now. There you go. So this is, just an example. So, and what they'll be like is, this is an example of a patriotic comic book, yada, yada, yada. But in a much more meaningful way, instead of just saying something really fast. And so the other books, like this one I've used a bunch too. This talks about the Punisher. This one was a really great book because it discusses how like Vietnam veterans come back and start writing like the Nam and stuff. That's a picture, but I'm looking for that actual one. But I can't find it right now. I don't want to waste your time. But like another example, like this is just a comic book. And so this book is about comic book culture, and it talks about the fans, right?
Okay.
So just a lot of interesting stuff out there. And I just feel like this is just stuff that like, people would be interested in hearing about. Y'all interview like so many awesome people, why not interview some like book authors at some point? So just something I'm toying around with. Like my show is kind of like in a midlife crisis mode. I don't really know what I'm going to do with it yet. Like I've just hit like a roadblock and I'm trying to redefine myself. So just tossing some stuff to the wall.
Kind of like a writer's block in a way.
Yeah.
But that's awesome, man. Like I've talked to, I think JT, and I know Sheena, HK Wifey. We've all started with books. Like even Jennifer from Comics Will Break Your Heart. Like I read. I was a big into S.E. Hinton with Outsiders. Like once I read The Outsiders, I was hooked on all of her stuff. I ended up getting Rumblefish. That was then, This Is Now type books, and just kind of followed that rabbit hole down and picked up everything from her.
Yeah, I get that, man. There's nothing like a good book.
Yeah, even to the point where I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to like look up her biography and find out. Like that's when I found out S.E. Hinton was not a man, it was a female. She did that because at that time, nobody was going to take her seriously putting out the type of books she was putting out. So I really thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And all of these people not only have a story to tell, but there's a story to be told about them.
Yeah. So I look forward to that. And I think everybody watching right now would be interested in that.
Cool. Well, hopefully so.
So I think we're going to wrap things up. Thank you so much for joining me, Kenny. It was a pleasure. I've learned so much from you, and I hope everybody watching learned so much from you. And you're a very, very interesting individual, to say the least.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
But guys, this is Whiplash Wednesday. It continues over on Nick Comic Culture's channel. He will be dropping a haul video either from his shop or from his home. Then after that, tune into Big Herm Collectibles and Sam from Sam's Tangled Web as they chop it up about Marvel, DC, Indies. Who knows? They talked about movies one week, so it could be that too. And then keep an eye out for our Where's Waldo PCP Army Bad Batch member, Stefan, because he could be popping up on Instagram with a video throughout the day. You never know when. So make sure you go go follow him on Instagram so you don't miss his video. And then ending the night in fashion, as always, is the Tomorrow Show, co-hosted by Brandon from Comics Kings. This is the week where they're doing What Are You Reading? And it's co-hosted. I'm not sure who's going to be on the panel, but tune in and find out because it's always a great time.
Always.
And go follow Kenny Caps on Comics on Instagram and his YouTube. He already told you what he has coming up, and it's always fun over there. Go check out his man-made guitar video, and that the link is down below in the description. And while you're there, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and as Big Herm Collectibles likes to say, ding, 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 that notification bell for future videos.
That's right.
So thank you again, Kenny, for stopping by and joining me. You are worth it, man. Station, my friend.
Station, you. And again, I really appreciate it, Travis. This has been an awesome hour, and it went by like that.
It went well, and so much information too. So.
Yeah, I do have a tendency to talk. If you're going to put a quarter in, you got to hear the whole song.
That's all right, man. So station to you. Make sure to like and subscribe to Kenny as well. All right, station, you're worth it. Happy New Comic Book Day, guys.